The night inside the billionaire's headquarters felt unnaturally still, the kind of silence that only existed in places where money insulated people from consequences. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a city glowing below, every light a reminder of power, ownership, and control. Around the long glass table sat men and women in tailored suits, their faces tight with forced confidence as a foreign contract was projected onto the screen behind them. The text was dense, written in a language few in the room truly understood, yet everyone pretended they did. At the head of the table stood the millionaire himself, relaxed, amused, enjoying the discomfort he had created. He thrived on moments like this, when intelligence became a performance and fear passed for respect. Near the back of the room, almost blending into the shadows, a cleaning lady quietly pushed her cart along the wall, wiping fingerprints from chrome surfaces that would be smudged again within minutes. No one acknowledged her presence. To them, she was part of the furniture. As the discussion stalled and excuses piled up, the millionaire's lips curled into a grin. He grabbed a printed copy of the contract, waved it casually, and turned toward the woman with the mop. His voice cut through the room, loud enough to sting. "Translate this, and you'll become the director," he sneered, savoring the joke before it landed. Laughter followed, shallow and obedient, echoing off the polished walls. The cleaning lady stopped moving. Slowly, deliberately, she placed the cloth on her cart as if she had all the time in the world. She walked forward, her steps soft but confident, and took the paper from his hand without asking. The laughter faded into an awkward hush. She read silently, her eyes moving with a speed that suggested familiarity, not struggle. The millionaire folded his arms, waiting for her to fail, already enjoying the humiliation he expected. But instead of confusion, her expression sharpened. She inhaled once and began to speak. Her voice was calm, precise, and fluent, translating not only the words but the intent behind them. She explained clauses the executives had overlooked, highlighted a hidden obligation buried in polite phrasing, and exposed a line that transferred legal liability entirely onto their company. The room shifted. Chairs creaked as people leaned forward. Someone whispered, "Is she right?" She continued, uninterrupted, correcting the original translation they had paid a consulting firm millions for. Then she paused, looked directly at the millionaire, and translated a single sentence twice, once literally and once truthfully. The second version revealed an insult disguised as respect, a subtle declaration that the foreign partner considered him reckless and easily manipulated. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. The millionaire opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. His smirk had vanished, replaced by disbelief and something close to fear. Board members stared at the screen, then at her, then back at him. The power in the room cracked like thin ice. Finally, he demanded her name, his tone sharp, defensive, stripped of humor. She gave it without hesitation and added, quietly, that language was dangerous when misunderstood and deadly when underestimated. She returned the paper to the table, picked up her cloth, and walked back toward her cart as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But nothing in the room was the same. The executives no longer looked at the millionaire with blind admiration. They looked at the door through which the cleaning lady had exited, realizing that intelligence had been standing among them all along, unseen, unheard, until arrogance invited it to speak. Morning light spilled across the marble floors of the headquarters, revealing every reflection and flaw the night before had hidden. The building came alive with its usual rhythm, elevators humming, assistants hurrying with tablets and coffee cups, security nodding at familiar faces. But beneath the routine, an invisible tension lingered. News of what had happened in the boardroom had already spread, growing larger with every retelling. Some exaggerated it into a legend. Others tried to minimize it into a misunderstanding, yet no version erased the truth. The cleaning lady had dismantled a $1 million deal in minutes. Anna arrived as she always did, before most employees, pushing her cart through hallways that smelled of polish and quiet ambition. Only today, people noticed her. Their eyes followed her movements, curious, cautious, even uneasy. A few greeted her for the first time, their smiles unsure, as if unsure which version of her they were allowed to acknowledge. Anna responded politely but without warmth, focused on her work, aware that attention could be as dangerous as invisibility. Upstairs, behind tinted glass, the millionaire sat alone in his office, staring at the city he had once believed he fully controlled. The contract lay open on his desk, marked with notes scribbled in frustration. He replayed the moment again and again. The laughter, the confidence, the sudden collapse of his authority. He had built his reputation on being the smartest man in the room, the one who never missed a detail. Yet a woman he had mocked had seen through what his advisors had not. That realization gnawed at him. By mid-morning, he ordered a background check, expecting to find a simple explanation, a relative in the industry, a past job exaggerated by rumor. Instead, the report unsettled him. Degrees from respected universities abroad, experience in international negotiations, a career that had once been promising, then abruptly erased from professional records. No scandals, no crimes, just a long silence. He felt irritation turn into something closer to discomfort. When he finally summoned Anna to his office, the request was phrased as optional, but everyone knew it wasn't. She arrived without hesitation, standing straight, hands relaxed at her sides. The office, designed to intimidate, failed to do so. He gestured for her to sit. She remained standing. The imbalance irritated him, yet he didn't insist. He spoke carefully this time, choosing words like chess pieces. He thanked her for pointing out certain issues and suggested her skills were being wasted. He offered a consulting role, temporary, well-paid, framed as an opportunity. Anna listened without interrupting, her expression neutral. When he finished, she shook her head gently and said she wasn't interested in being a convenient solution. She explained that she had spent years watching powerful people use language to hide intentions, watching titles given as jokes and taken away as punishment. She said she didn't want a favor. She wanted responsibility with real authority or nothing at all. The words unsettled him more than her translation had. No one spoke to him like that, not anymore. He felt the familiar urge to assert dominance, to remind her who controlled the building, her paycheck, her future. But another thought stopped him. She had nothing to lose. That made her dangerous. After a long pause, he proposed a trial period, limited but official, with access to documents and meetings. The board resisted immediately when they heard. Objections flew: protocol, image, risk. Yet numbers supported her assessments, and the contract she had exposed would have cost them far more than their pride. Reluctantly, they agreed. That afternoon, Anna sat at the boardroom table for the first time. No card, no uniform, just borrowed office clothes that didn't quite fit the role they tried to assign her. She didn't try to impress anyone. She asked questions, simple ones at first, then sharper, more uncomfortable ones. She noticed contradictions between reports, caught vague phrases hiding uncertainty, and demanded explanations instead of reassurances. Executives who had once laughed at her now struggled to answer. The millionaire watched in silence, his authority still intact on paper, but subtly weakened in reality. He saw how people leaned toward her logic, how clarity commanded more respect than volume. By evening, the meeting ended with more tasks than conclusions, and something rare had occurred: accountability. As employees left, Anna remained behind, organizing notes, unaffected by the glances thrown her way. The millionaire approached her, intending to reclaim control, but stopped short. For the first time, he questioned whether control was the right goal. As she gathered her papers, she reminded him that words shaped outcomes, and that misunderstanding them was a luxury no leader could afford. She left him standing alone in the boardroom, surrounded by glass and reflections, realizing that the woman he had tried to humiliate had forced him to confront a truth he had avoided for years. That power built on arrogance was fragile, and real authority began the moment one learned to listen. The weeks that followed reshaped the company in ways no strategic plan ever had. Anna's role, still unofficial in spirit despite its authority on paper, grew heavier with each decision she influenced. She moved through departments once sealed off by hierarchy, listening more than she spoke, asking questions that exposed the quiet machinery of fear and compromise. Employees who had learned to survive by staying silent found themselves unexpectedly heard. Mistakes were no longer buried under polished language. They were named, examined, and corrected. This shift unsettled those who had thrived on ambiguity. Meetings grew tense, not with shouting, but with the discomfort of honesty. The millionaire watched from the head of the table as discussions changed tone, less deferential, more precise. He noticed how people prepared differently when Anna was present, no longer relying on charm or rehearsed confidence. They brought facts. They brought explanations. They brought truth, or at least tried to. Her influence wasn't dramatic. It was surgical. One by one, questionable contracts were revised, partnerships reconsidered, and internal reports rewritten to reflect reality instead of optimism. The financial impact was immediate but uneven. Profits dipped slightly at first, sparking panic among board members accustomed to constant growth. Anna didn't flinch. She argued that stability built on honesty would outlast growth built on illusion. The millionaire found himself defending her logic in meetings, an unfamiliar position that unsettled his sense of self. Late one evening, after another long debate, he encountered her alone in the boardroom, reviewing a set of documents in a language he didn't recognize. He asked her, almost casually, how many languages she spoke. She answered without pride, listing them as if they were tools rather than trophies. He pressed further, asking why someone with her abilities had disappeared into obscurity. The question hung between them, heavier than he expected. Anna closed the folder and told him about a previous life where she had trusted institutions that celebrated her intelligence until it challenged them. Speaking up had cost her a career, alliances, and a sense of safety. Cleaning had offered anonymity, a way to observe systems without being consumed by them. She said she had learned more about power while invisible than she ever had while respected. The millionaire listened, genuinely this time, recognizing pieces of himself in her story: ambition, disillusionment, the quiet exhaustion of constant performance. He admitted that his success had insulated him from consequences, that people rarely spoke honestly around him unless they had nothing to lose. Anna met his gaze and said that was precisely why his joke had worked against him. By underestimating her, he had created a space where truth could exist without permission. The admission struck him harder than any criticism. From that moment, their interactions changed. They were no longer adversaries or symbols, but collaborators bound by an uneasy respect. Still, resistance grew elsewhere. Executives who felt threatened whispered about image, about precedent, about knowing one's place. Anna became a quiet dividing line within the company. Some saw her as a corrective force, others as a risk. When a major partner raised concerns about her involvement, the board demanded she be sidelined. The millionaire faced a choice he had avoided his entire career: protect comfort or defend principle. In a closed meeting, he spoke plainly, refusing to soften his words. He said the company's greatest risk wasn't transparency, but arrogance. He reminded them of the deal she had saved them from, the costs they would have borne. The room fell silent. For the first time, his authority was used not to dominate, but to protect. Anna didn't thank him. She simply continued her work, aware that real change was never comfortable and never finished. As the company moved forward, the culture slowly shifted. Decisions took longer, but meant more. Language became a tool for clarity rather than disguise. And in the quiet moments, when the millionaire found himself alone with the city lights reflecting off the glass, he understood that leadership was no longer about being the loudest voice in the room. It was about making space for the one that told the truth. The real test arrived without warning, the way crises always do, slipping through the smallest cracks before anyone realizes the foundation is shaking. A confidential internal document leaked overnight, its contents spreading across media outlets by morning, framed in the most damaging way possible. Headlines accused the company of manipulation, exploitation, and deliberate deception. Investors panicked, shares dipped sharply, and the board demanded an immediate response. Emergency meetings stacked one after another, voices rising, strategies colliding. The instinctive reaction was familiar and aggressive: deny everything, threaten legal action, bury the story under complexity. The millionaire drafted a statement dense with legal language, designed to protect the company rather than explain it. When Anna read it, she said nothing at first. She simply placed the pages on the table and rewrote the statement from scratch. Her version was shorter, clearer, and far more dangerous. It admitted mistakes without surrendering responsibility, explained context without excuses, and translated corporate decisions into human consequences. The board erupted in protest, warning that honesty would be interpreted as guilt, that vulnerability would be exploited. Anna remained calm. She argued that the public no longer trusted language meant to confuse, that credibility could only be rebuilt through clarity. The millionaire listened, torn between instinct and experience. For years, his success had come from controlling narratives, not opening them. Yet every controlled narrative had brought them here. After hours of debate, he made a decision that surprised even himself. He approved Anna's version. The press conference that followed was tense, cameras flashing, journalists waiting for ovation. Standing beside the millionaire, Anna did not speak much, but her presence was unmistakable. The statement was read exactly as written. Questions were answered directly, some deferred, none dismissed. The reaction was not immediate outrage, as many had feared, but something quieter and more powerful: respect. Analysts noted the shift in tone. Employees felt acknowledged instead of sacrificed. The company's shares stabilized, then slowly recovered. In the days that followed, internal morale changed. People spoke with less caution and more responsibility, aware that truth would no longer be punished by default. Late one evening, after the building had emptied and the city glowed beyond the windows, the millionaire called Anna into his office. There was no performance this time, no audience. He handed her an official document, formally offering her the directorship he had once mocked. His voice was steady, almost humble. He told her that she hadn't just translated contracts or statements. She had translated him, exposing the gap between power and understanding. Anna read the offer carefully, then looked up and said that titles mattered only if actions followed. She accepted, not as a victory, but as a responsibility. The next morning, the cleaning cart was still parked in the hallway, untouched, a quiet symbol of where the story had begun. The company continued to face challenges, but it faced them differently now, with language that clarified rather than concealed. The millionaire, once known for his sneer, became known for listening. And the woman who had been ignored rewrote not just documents, but the meaning of leadership itself, proving that authority is not granted by wealth or position, but earned through truth, courage, and the willingness to be changed.